Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison, and I want to welcome you to day 218 of Humanity Rising. It's a pleasure to be with you today. All week, we have been following the trial in Minneapolis of Derek Chauvin, the white police officer who just about a year ago on the 25th of May arrested George Floyd, forced him to the ground, and for 9 minutes and 24 seconds in a video that was seen repeatedly all over the world, put his knee on George Floyd's neck until George Floyd was dead, gasping that he couldn't breathe. And somehow that event, of all the events in 2020 as we traversed the pandemic, seared itself indelibly into the public mind worldwide. Yesterday in the testimony, we heard from the paramedics that were called by 911 when they saw that there was an emergency. There were repeated requests for Derek Chauvin to release his knee hold on George Floyd's neck. He did not. And so you saw the video in the courtroom yesterday that as Derek Chauvin's knee was forcing itself onto George Floyd's neck, the paramedic could tell by taking George Floyd's pulse that he was already dead. And still, Chauvin kept his knee on the neck. And in a rather poignant and dramatic moment in the courtroom yesterday, the supervising officer, the police officer who was overseeing the policemen all across Minneapolis that day, he was asked whether this force was necessary. The defense lawyer objected to the question. It was the final question of the prosecution. So the judge ordered the jury to leave the room, and both the prosecution and the defense lawyers went to the bench, and they had an animated conversation at the end of which the judge said that that was a legitimate question that the jury needed to hear. So the jury was called back in. The prosecutor repeated the question: was it necessary for Derek Chauvin to keep his knee on the neck of George Floyd? And the supervising officer said no. That level of force should have been immediately released once the person was no longer indicating any resistance or capacity for violence. And you could see by the video that George Floyd never really resisted once he was down on the concrete pavement. So it was a rather dramatic ending to the trial that continues now into its fifth day. So we'll keep monitoring it. But it calls up for all of us very deep questions about diversity, about social harmony, about appropriate use of force, and about racism and ethnic differentiations that all of us live with, and how we can come together and honor the diversity rather than be afraid of it. So it's an iconic moment for all of humanity during this time of COVID. As we ponder these matters, let us take a moment and just pause in the hustle and bustle of our world. Let us center ourselves in our bodies. Let us take a few deep breaths. And let us close our eyes if we can and place our attention on our hearts. It's the heart that encompasses all things. Let us listen for just a minute in the quietude of this moment to our heartbeats. Listen to your heartbeat in a spirit of thanksgiving and gratitude that you're alive, that we're alive at this extraordinary moment in the human journey. Thank you, everyone. Now, with an open heart and a heart full of gratitude for each and every one of you joining our session today, I want to commence our program by observing what we've all experienced about the pandemic, that among many other things, including public health and safety and our own personal health, the pandemic has radically changed the way we work. Even though many of us were online for much of the time, most of us were going to work, going to school, going on airplanes and traveling the world and socializing in ways of intimacy as we met, kissing each other on the cheeks, hugging each other, shaking hands, interacting in all kinds of ways in cafes. And then all of a sudden, we were forced into lockdown and we were compelled to engage in physical distancing and wear masks. And one of the most fundamental impacts was on the way we work. All of a sudden, everyone had to be home and yet somehow mediate their capacity to work through the internet and online. So today we want to talk about that and talk about the future of work as the pandemic, now more than a year upon us, continues to compel every sector of society, from education to entertainment to politics, even the law, to engage in the mediation of human relationships and human enterprise through computers and through the internet. We're very honored and privileged to have an opportunity to go to Spain today. I want to introduce Myrtha Casanova, who's been a very dear friend of mine for a very long time. She was the founder of Stanhome back in 1968. Was a representative of a US marketing firm and built up the company to the point that it had 50,000 sellers around Spain and Europe. In the 1980s, she joined the Naisbitt Group. Many of you will remember John Naisbitt. He wrote that extraordinary book that was a bestseller all over the world called Megatrends, using content analysis to gather data and project trends. And then more recently, she founded the European Institute for Diversity Management and has been working across Europe and around the world in the very critical domain of how we use diversity to enhance our creativity and social harmony, a critical issue in our world, given events like the death of George Floyd. So Myrtha, my good friend and partner for many years, I want to welcome you to Humanity Rising and turn the program over to you. Myrtha?
Thank you, Jim. It's really a privilege to be here with you today.
Oh, Myrtha, you need to turn your video on.
Yes. How do I do that? Fatima?
Lower left.
Oh, there you are.
You'll see a stop video button and you just press it.
Sí, tengo que poner el vídeo y no sé hacerlo.
Aquí. En el vídeo tienes que ponerlo directamente aquí.
Tengo que quitar esto de aquí. Ah, there you are.
Iniciar el vídeo.
Perfect.
No,
Welcome.
Thank you so much. Ahora ponme las pantallas. It's really wonderful to share some time with you and all the participants that are today with us in this analysis that we propose of what is going on in the world. How can we reinvent our lives in a scenario that is changing dramatically, which we really do not understand, but we have to live through it. So what we proposed is to analyze it from the point of view of the new ways of working. What does new ways of working means, and how we're going to address it. So let's keep in mind that diversity is the very nature of humanity. That is, people, you and I and all, we are different. We're different in gender, we're different in age, we're different in the way of thinking, we're diverse. Humanity is diverse. So this presentation aims at providing that the new nature of humanity is diversity, very close to us and on a daily basis. Humanity is advancing towards a very new and different era. And these changes can be forecasted through content analysis, as Jim has just mentioned. And there is a need to detect the positive and negative implications that behavior of whatever agents in these scenarios have in order to analyze this advantages, risks, and opportunities that these changes bring. So we have selected distance working as a core major transformational analysis of this global impact it has on social, economic, technology, and governance as they change our way of living. Now, there are positive things that the pandemic has brought. For example, in Spain, in August last year, there were 50 people less dying than the previous year. So what does that mean? Well, that means that people are taking more care of their health. They are more conscious of the importance of taking care both of the health and of the planet. Another very good news, another very positive contribution of the pandemic is the diverse way of working. Distance working is what we've chosen as a core major change agent. People are learning how to develop personally and professionally with a higher efficiency and contributing to a better environmental care by less transportation, less movement of people in everyday life. So there are positive things about the pandemic that we have to learn and leverage. So why has the pandemic come now? It's not a coincidence. I think it happened because it had to happen. The world, humanity has reached a point of no return, a point with huge gaps in the economy, in the demography, in the energy. The 8 richest men in the world can feed Africa. Now that's not real. 70% of the population is under the level of poverty. So there is a gap, a bigger gap always between the very rich and the very poor, which is unsustainable. The birth rate of developed countries, which are the ones that should be the motor of to raise the quality of life of the entire population, is 0. So while the demographic growth of demographic growth of underdeveloped countries take care of 95% of the growth. That's insane, because the lack of stability and sustainability is there very evident. 120% of the states, of the debt of the states cannot even pay their interests. The salaries in companies can be a 200% difference from the upper management to the workers. Now that is not sustainable. That's not fair. That is not socially correct, and that's not correct economically, or it's not sustainable. 380,000 people die every year on an average because of terrorism. There's something very wrong in governance somewhere. And then the poles are melting because of the heat and the lack of care for the environment. Now, one of the things that is an advantage today is the new ways of working, and that's what we're going to focus to analyze what impact it has in a new way of living. Work is very scarce in this today and in the future. If we understand that work is a company giving a job to someone. Now that is becoming more and more scarce as we advance in a new era. The fourth industrial revolution that has been presented by Klaus Schwarz illustrates it very, very clearly. The new era is not a manufacturing era for the developed countries. Its economy is based on services and technology, not on manufacturing, because we have overdoing the manufacturing part of the economy with excess manufacturing that is collapsing the system. Robotics is taking care of workers in the pipeline. Artificial intelligence will take care of decision makers. Now it's helping companies become more efficient. At some point, it may substitute the decision makers in that point. There's a new governance. One sees all over the world that politicians today are more business people worrying about their position than in administrating a country for the benefit of its people. Now, it is important in this context to start managing time. Now, what is happening to people? Well, people most important value today is their time. And this has to be addressed. We did a research some time ago that proved that 88 of the employees in a company feel that they work more hours than they should. 68% think that they are under pressure. 60% do not have time to finish their work. 71% feel that they are being overused. 57% confess that they are burned out. 43% state that they have, in order they prefer to earn less but have more time for themselves. Executives want to work distance working. 77% men and 67% women would like to work at a distance at that time. And 80% of upper management says that they really want to work 80% of the time away from the office, because in the office there is a major waste of time of energy, and because decision making is never taken, the big decisions are generally not taken in the office. Now, if we take this as well, this project was done for a major international company. And when these findings were presented and analyzed, they have to rethink their way of handling their business. But this is the commonality. This is what people think in the way they work and they feel. And still we have been trying to stay on the 8-hour shift day of work, which doesn't mean anything and goes against what people want to do and what it's really efficient to do in companies. So persons have to be rewarded not by their presence in the company or by the times, the hours they are there. They have to be rewarded by what their contribution is to the organization. And distance working make this far more efficient. Now, the cost of presence working is alarming because you have the cost of socialization, of permits, of distractions, as far as staff time is concerned. You have the wasted time of extended meetings now that you're there, the undesired interactions, the overgrown meetings, the things that really shouldn't be happening and shouldn't be wasted, which takes care about 40% of staff time cost. And then, of course, you have the cost of direct infrastructure, the direct cost of people in the infrastructure, the space, the energy cost, the maintenance, the taxes, the mobility. So all of this can be saved if the person works in a different way. He works from home or works distance working. Now let's analyze other ways of working, for example, that are not a commonality, which should be, such as job sharing. What is job sharing? People, not everybody, as we have seen, wants to work 8 hours or little less, 10 hours, as companies force people to stay in the office, which doesn't mean they're working. It means they have to stay in the office to prove their loyalty and their capacity to be promoted, etc., which doesn't mean anything. So if distance sharing, for example, the Ministry of Defence of the UK has 2 managers with 120 people in their charge that they share the responsibility. They're extremely efficient. They're extremely efficient. They divide their salary, but they really do not free themselves from their task and their constant worry about their job and their client or whatever their job is. The end result is that there are 2 people sharing responsibility all the time with the added value that they are sharing their own time. And this is extremely important as far as efficiency and results are concerned. Hewlett-Packard, for example, as an example, it's very good in distance in job sharing, particularly in marketing and servicing of their clients, as an example. So job sharing is something that can be done because you respect the time of the people. People can manage their own time and be far more efficient than they are if they are obliged to stay physically in a place for over 8 hours. Now there are half-time jobs that are, at least in Spain, so criticized. So why not half-time jobs? That's very important for many industries. For example, the retail industry, the hotels, agriculture, they're not on all the time and all the year out, do not need the exact number of people, of staff time, they need flexibility in that sense. There are sometimes in the year that they need more staff time, more people, more contribution from human resources, and other times they don't because it's stationary. So why the 8 hours and not 6 or 10 or half of the living time of a person, which is totally absurd? In Spain, as an example, last year we had 671 inspectors controlling the time of half-time jobs. Now, that is a cost which is unbearable by any economy and any society. There is a majority of people, as we have said before, that want to work less time, even if they earn less, but they want to value the time and dedicate it to things they want and enjoy. Because people do not live to work, they work to live. In Spain, 34.5% of the people of the contracts are part-time. And in the year 2019, the service sector had increased enormously to 75%, because of course we have the tourism in Spain, which is the main interior gross product benefiting in the country. So each country has to analyze its structure, its needs for staff time, for people to contribute to the productive system, and legislate accordingly, but always taking into account that people, what they want. And if they have what they want, people are more efficient in whatever they do. Networking as a way of working is extraordinarily efficient. It's another way of working. Like Amway, for example, Tupperware of Avon, they have networking systems. What is the offer of a network? Well, the offer of a network is that a person can develop its own business within the company. That is very attractive for people, to create their own business, manage their own time, and manage their own resources and their income. So if you have more time, you dedicate more time, you create a bigger sales force or a distribution organization. So it's a wonderful way of responding to the new needs of people as far as managing their time is concerned and managing their own time, their own profession. Now we come to distance working, which is what the pandemic has obliged all of us to do, which is a wonderful achievement. Now we have many companies here as an example. Xerox, who started job sharing, distance working in the 2000s, very successfully. So let's not talk about teleworking, because we have all teleworked ever since the first computer entered in our companies many, many years ago. What is new today is the concept that you work from home or from wherever you want to work. For example, there is a hotel in Canarias that has decided to advertise their hotel as the paradise to work from. So if you are in the office, you can be in the Canary Islands, in front of the sea, in a wonderful hotel, renting a small apartment with all the services, and they're full when other hotels are closed. So it's analyzing the opportunities that a situation like this one brings, and they are doing a great job in doing that. So there are positive results in a pandemic world if you know how to analyze the risks and the advantages and the opportunities. Now, information technology, of course, is helping us to do that. If it were not for information technology, that we can see each other, we can work with our colleagues in our working day, it would be, of course, impossible. But we have the information technology that is a great ally that allows us to distance work, but allows us also to work in a group. We don't work alone, and we shouldn't feel alone when we work distance working from a home or from somewhere else, because we can always call and see in a WhatsApp, in a Zoom, in whatever media you use, our colleagues, and share with them, and our group, and share with them. We're not alone physically. We're not alone. It's a group and a teamwork that has to be promoted. Now, conciliation is another success. Why? Because now that we do not have to be in the office 8 hours or 10, we can manage the personal and the professional life, and everybody wins. The family wins, we win, we manage our own time. And the result is that there is a more efficient investment of results. Now, what will another major advantages that we can analyze? For example, we can see that Twitter has announced in September that they are officially a distance working organization. The president of Twitter 2 years ago decided to go to Hawaii, to a wonderful stay they have here, and has invested 2 years in getting all his organization of almost 4,000 people, 3,800 people, to start distance working. Now, that doesn't mean that the offices are closed. It means that people work home voluntarily. Those who need to be in the office for a specific task reason, they have the office. People that want to meet, go to the office and meet, but it's not compulsory. People work from home or from wherever they want to work. Their life is far more pleasant. Their life is far more committed, and the result in their contribution to the corporate objectives is far more efficient. And this is something that Twitter is saying once and again, and that will set a pace to other US corporations that are going to establish distance working as a rule. Now, if we take Xerox, which in the year 2000, the year 2000 already, 21 years ago, the president of Xerox in a meeting in New York of a presentation, he presented the model that Xerox used in distance working for the client service department. And it was a great success. He had at the moment already 3,000 people in distance working. Of course, it's voluntary. The company gives a workstation to each person that joins this way of working in this department. The groups, it's always groups, because the core of all distance working is working in a group. You don't feel alone. You work in a group within a company, but you share with the people closest to you. The groups in the Xerox case is from under 14. Each person in the group sets its own pace. It sets its own number of companies that they can service, and it sets its own timings, so that the entire group has an objective, and within that objective, each person has its own to contribute to the group's performance. Then the group has constant interpersonal relations with each other during a week, and once a week they get together in the office. Another result, a very important result, is that they increase 3 times their sales of services. There was a 97% increase of staff time approval of the system, and there was, of course, 100% approval of the type on the part of clients that multiplied by 3 their demand of work and of service. And of course, there was a 50% savings in contamination, because there was a 50% less movement of unnecessary movement of people going to the office first and going to see clients later. So it was a very impacting experience, which of course Xerox has been updating constantly. So that's a great effect, an economic effect of distance working, a social effect of distance working, and of course a legislative effect of distance working, which has to be in place to coordinate perfectly well this type of working and of living. Now, in distance working, you have to train the people that go in distance working, because it is important that they trust what they're doing and the company trust what they're doing. The company, if the company doesn't trust that the people from home are delivering the task that they have to deliver, we have a problem. So there's an important part is the training both of the company and of the people in distance working and in any type of working. Trust is very important. So there, time management is involved, personal organization is involved, how to organize you better. There's objectives of the group. There's a personal professional agenda to develop. The fact that you work from distance doesn't mean that you cannot develop it. It means the other way around. You have more time to retrain yourself or try to look for information. So each employee must manage their own time. And their own time doesn't mean they have to start working at 9 o'clock and finish at 17 or at 19. It means that you manage your time at whatever point in time you have to introduce your personal times and your professional times together, so that life is far more efficient, and that's the objective. Now, individual tasks, like for example, I have a responsibility like IKEA did once. They got an entire group, a division, and allowed the people to organize themselves in that division in how to cover the entire day in IKEA, which starts at 4 o'clock in the morning and ends at 10 o'clock at night, and how that group organized itself without anybody else trying to do it. And it was an enormous success, because then the responsibility of the people in managing their own time, in dedicating time when they had the time, it was absolutely excellent. So there has to be constant interpersonal communications to guarantee the efficiency of the process. And there's that guarantees the personal results and the professional results. Both have to be positive. If your personal life is positive, your professional life is. If your professional life is positive, your personal life is also. So there has to be a training and a trust from the part of the company that the person is doing their task with excellence, and a trust from the part of the employee that he or she is being recognized for its output. Now, as a change agent, of course, the distance working has an impact on society. It has an impact on economy, on production, on technology, on climate, and on governance. What impact? Well, in society, for example, distance working in a different way. They need different services. They increase, for example, online shopping. They have increased, at least in Spain, in 10% their buying of products, of food products at home, because now they do not lunch outside of the outside of home when they go to the office every day. So there's an entire difference in way of working and a way of buying and a way of consuming, which of course will affect all of the companies that service any person. It will affect design, it will affect clothing, it will affect any type of retail. And those have to rethink in turn the new needs of these people, which are enormous. So it has an impact on economy, an impact on production, and of course an impact on services. Now, it also affects the domestic help that we have. If now we are more home, we need less domestic help. But then it's going to affect also the education, the restaurants. We can access to more education. We go less to the restaurants. So the restaurants have to rethink their way of servicing the clients. They have to rethink their new services. So it's not the impact is an impact that has impact on everything, on all surroundings. So the real estate area is going to be enormously impacted. Why? Because big companies that have 80% of the people distance working, they're going to have 80% of their spaces free to either create a new business in it, or to rent, or to que no hagas ruido, Fátima, or a space to rent or to dedicate to other things. And that is a rethinking area. Is you have to reinvent another business. So architects have to design homes that have a space to work. And of course, IKEA, that is a company that I really admire, has already on sale a portable working station that can fit in almost in any apartment, even enclosed. You open your closet and it's an entire working station, a beautiful thing that is going to contribute enormously to this new era that we have to live in. So the real estate is going to change totally in its value, in its spaces, in its rentals, and in its use. So it's going to invite people who have the companies that have this big spaces that they have been using now to hold attendance of people, to use them in another way. And that's a challenge. It's an economic challenge. And now companies are downsizing in a new era. So what is growing is the need to service the time, the extra time that people are gaining for themselves. So new businesses should be really on the services and education and technology areas, because those are the needs that people have right now and in the future. So the fourth industrial revolution, it's making a very big contrast and a very big impact in the way of managing companies, in the way of managing industries, and in the way of managing free time. And free time is a great business opportunity in the new era. And now the environment is going to be far more taken care of. Air travel has come down drastically and has to reinvent itself to see how on earth they are going to do other type of services and contaminate less. The people are moving less, therefore we're contaminating less. And in so doing, we become far more responsible for something that is very important, which is the health of our planet. Now, as far as governance is concerned, it's a challenge for governments to legislate an entire new way of living. It's not only a new way of working, it's an entire new way of living, considering that not all our governments are professionally capable of managing things correctly. Now there's a global transformation, and this global transformation is going to bring social, economic, production, ecological changes. The changes, as we say, are global and they are economic and they are productive. So they are forcing industries to rethink what they are. For example, the oil industry. The oil industry, in which industry they should be. They have not realized that they are in the energy industry. They should have financed the alternative energies from the beginning, rather than keep on introducing and selling the oils and contaminating energies to prolong an unsustainable situation for the world, which is now, of course, in the verge of collapsing. They have to rethink in which industry they are. They are not in the energy industry. They are in the energy industry. They are not in the oil industry. And that is something that the railroads in the United States should have understood when air travel started, when the air travel began in the United States, they fought it completely when they should have sponsored it. And they today would be leaders in transportation rather than the problem they have had for years as the railroad in the United States almost disappeared. So you have to rethink in what area you in, what business you are. It's like the hotels in Spain that are closing because they do not understand that they are not in the tourist business. They are in the lodging business, lodging people that need a space. There are 800,000 people that live alone in Spain that they could have a better place of living. The example is the wonderful example that the Coral hotels are doing in the Canary Islands. They are lodging people that work at a distance, and they are very successful in doing it. So they have understood that they're not in the tourist business, they're in the lodging people business. So ask yourself, in what business do we really are? So that you can adapt and readapt, and you think you're positioning in a very interesting and different future. You have to do context analysis to always understand the risks and the opportunities of everything that comes up. The challenge of this change is that it's very fast. The speed of this change is what really makes a difference, because it doesn't practically give time for the people to understand and use them in a friendly way. And that is our challenge in a new type of education, to be educated for the future needs, which the future started yesterday. So we have it tomorrow already. Now, so that will change the way of educating, of course, as Jim knows perfectly well. We're going to have to change the way of producing, the way of doing services, the business. We have to make an entire new roadmap to a sustainable development in the future. So I cannot solve problems with the tools used to create them, said Albert Einstein, who generally was right. I cannot solve problems with the tools that create them. So the people that has taken us to the point where we are right now cannot solve them because they do not know how to solve them. We have to create and rethink our entire new way of living, of thinking, and of course, of working. And it is not a coincidence that the pandemic has happened now, when we are in the verge of not sustainability. It's forcing a major change towards a new era that we have to rethink and be a very active part in it, something that Jim knows very well. Thank you so very much for your time. Fatima.
Hi, Myrtha. We can see you and Gonzalo.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gonzalo Sánchez, and I also collaborate with European Institute for Managing Diversity, which was founded by Myrtha Casanova. And I'm going to speak a little bit about one of the most relevant trends, in our opinion, that will follow the pandemic in this new world that we will face in the next year. We've been thinking a lot about the approach that we should give to this second part of the presentation, and we decided to focus on diversity. We've been thinking within the European Institute for Managing Diversity about the role that diversity and diversity management will have in this new era, and we are sure that it is not going to be less relevant, but the opposite. Diversity is going to be a key element of the rising of a new humanity based on different principles that led us to this moment. So it's always a pleasure to speak after Myrtha. I've done it, I don't know how many times before, and it's always a pleasure because she always draws the background for a more specific presentation, which is what I would like to transmit this afternoon. To provide some definitions and concepts of what do we understand by diversity in this moment. Those are results of research that we've been doing in the last 20 years in the European Institute for Managing Diversity. I am an academic. I work for University of Cádiz, which is in the very south of Spain, in the Strait of Gibraltar. But I've developed different research projects all over the world, together with the European Institute for Managing Diversity and all their partners. And what we are going to show you is, as I told, results of different research that we have done before. I have a lot of things to say and perhaps too many slides. I'm sorry if I passed quickly through some of them. Some of them were just designed to provide data about a specific aspect. So I'm just going to focus on those that I feel that could be more interesting for you, and also because we would like to save some time for discussing with you about our approach. I'm going to share a presentation that I have prepared. Okay, can you see it, right?
It's good. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So, linking with what Myrtha has just said about the moment in which we are living, I wanted just to take a couple of ideas from this description of the strange world in which we are living, that comes from the development of our society in the whole 20th century, with this industrialization process linked with demographic growth of inequality and insecurity and so on. So economic development, which has not always been accompanied by a social development. No? In this moment, I find quite interesting the thesis that Francis Fukuyama presented at the late 80s, about the end of history. It was quite surprising for sociologists and economists. Somebody saying that the history had finished with this process of development and economic growth and so on. So we were thinking at the end of the 90s that we had reached the top of social and economic development. No? But the recent trends at the beginning of the 21st century had made things a bit more strange even. I have highlighted some of these changes in some of these trends in the slide. No, the growing inequality, the controversial effects of globalization, and the definition of economic systems. The demographic trends have changed from the growth that we experienced in the 20th century to a demographic slowdown more recent. Also, this has made us rethink the idea that Fukuyama presented. No? It's obvious nowadays that the history has not finished. We have a long way to move, to do lots of things to improve, of course. And also, I find it much more relevant nowadays, this other quotation from Jürgen Habermas, talking about the complexity of the world in which we are living, no? And even before the pandemic, no? So the pandemic has made it even more complex to manage in this moment, no? So some of the elements that have changed, some data that could help to illustrate this change. You know, I included them just as an example because you know what happens with data. You can find different sources with different specific information, but the change is it's clearly towards a more complex society, you know, with in which and it's one of the first conclusions that we wanted to reach. The key element is diversity. Societies are nowadays more diverse than ever, because of many different changes, both from economic development and social changes and so on. It has made also economic and organizational context change. Just have a look, a quick look to the profile of the successful companies and in 1955 and a couple of years
Gonzalo,
ago.
are you changing slides? Because we only see one slide.
Yes, I've been changing since the beginning.
No, we've only seen one slide. Sorry.
Only the first one?
Yeah.
Oh, so you haven't seen those ones?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, so can you see one with 2 lists of firms now?
Yeah, we see we see organizational responses, Fortune 500.
Yeah, okay. That the problem should be when I click on full screen mode. I'm going to try it again, and if it doesn't work, I can present it just like this, because let's see. It's now in full screen mode. Can you see the same slide?
Same slide. Yeah, it's in a full screen mode.
Okay, it's changing now?
No.
Okay. Okay, so I will do it this way. It's not a problem at all. Okay. So let me know if this happens again. Okay. I was just trying to argue that diversity is in the very essence of our society nowadays, and it is even more important now with this pandemic context than ever. So our doubt here is if we as academic or managers or practitioners or consultants, are we really aware of the relevance of these changes? Are we aware that diversity can be one of the key elements to foster innovation in the post-pandemic society. And our opinion, not only mine, but also from the people that we're all working with in the European Institute for Managing Diversity, is that we are, as a community, we are not really aware of the relevance of this change. I have included in this slide just a few covers of human resource management manuals that we used in universities to teach human resource management. And the majority of them lack of specific diversity management concepts, and when they include diversity management as something that needs to be addressed by human resource scholars, it is like just the last of the units normally linked to social responsibility issues and so on. But we are not sure if we have really understood the relevance of this change. We still emphasize on organizational cultures, socialization, and thinking about the staff in capital letters, not something which is something like an homogeneous group of people, no matter how they think or feel. You can just apply specific HR practices to them and get some outcomes from them. No? So the trend, in fact, or the way in which we are moving organization tends to homogeneity, in fact. HR management is much more focused on replicating organizational cultures and on socializing new employees, which is a way of replicating workers. No? And the pandemic situation, in fact, is an excuse to emphasize on this again, no? Because we have read different papers, recent papers, talking about the need to socialize and to make organizational cultures clear when you have a distance working situation, because it makes people understand the corporate objectives and so on. Our doubt is to what extent this is really hiding opportunities. No? A new way of working in a post-pandemic society should change some aspects of the new way of working to promote the social harmony which is needed to get all the advantages of diversity. So some of these trends should be broken to really take the advantages from diversity. No? Well, diversity management is something that we've been talking about like 20 or 25 years ago. Our academic and also professional approach to diversity management is comprehensive. It's much more global. We don't want firms to have a diversity management department, but manage diversity in each and every action that they are developing. And this is in our opinion, a key element, and something that it has not always been done correctly by organizations. Diversity management is just managing HR, in a diverse context, not denying the diversity that defines the society nowadays. Okay, so this is the traditional way of approaching diversity management. No? The three stages of diversity management, with starting from a search for equality, and this leads to developing anti-discrimination policies and anti-discrimination laws from governments and so on. And once this is done, applying something similar to the Maslow's pyramid logic, which something needs to be done before, and once equality is done, you can move to the next step. The traditional diversity management approach said that once you have reached equality, you can focus on sizing diversity, looking for the competitive advantages that can come from diversity. And the next step, the highest, the expected step would be integration, inclusion, and making diversity a continuous learning system. This is the traditional approach. We think that nowadays, specifically nowadays, in the new situation where we are facing, we think that these 3 stages should be defined differently, not as in this sense, but in the opposite sense. Everything should start from integration. Everything should start from sensibilization and awareness policies. And I'm not only talking about business or firms, but any kind of organization, any group formed by more than one individual who have objectives in common and shared views, and that they divide jobs to organize themselves. So everything should start from sensibilization, which is the most important thing in our opinion nowadays. In fact, I think that more than half of the work that the European Institute for Managing Diversity has done in the last 20 years is focused on sensibilization, on raising awareness about the relevance of differences and how can they promote innovation and so on. When this is done, the next step is obviously much easier. The moving from integration to equality is much easier, and competitive advantages, of what strategists call competitive advantage, will come, because everything goes down. It's not the other way in which you have to make a strong effort from moving from equality to sizing or integration. Here the effort is done in the first step, looking for integration. This is the point in which we think that we should place the stronger efforts. And our opinion is that physical distancing and distance working and so on, if you think about the processes that they are developing in depth, they can provide benefits to promote it. We are optimistic about the effects that a new way of working coming after the pandemic can draw for diversity management, because they could help to eliminate some of the barriers that diversity management has had before. Just a quick look about what do we understand by diversity, and just because I would like to also to break the idea that diversity is just the visible differences, and this has a lot to do with these benefits of distance working and so that could have. we are sure, and this is one of the main results in our research projects, that the key benefits from diversity does not come from visible differences, but from differences in underlying attributes. The iceberg metaphor is quite helpful to understand this. No, we can have in the up part of the iceberg, the visible part, which you can see and manage when you are sailing a boat. You can see visible differences, like differences in terms of age, gender, nationality, something that is obvious, visible, or that you can know just by having a look to the CV or a description of the background of the employee or your fellow. But there are other underlying attributes which we call human capital diversity, which are in the lower part of the iceberg, which you cannot see unless you dive. You cannot manage them directly when you're sailing the boat, no? But that they are the most relevant part of the diversity construct. The majority of the mass and the weight of the iceberg are down the water, no? So we propose to specifically in this situation not to focus on visible differences on what you are looking at when you see your screen and those thumbnails in your Zoom, but on differences in terms of knowledge, abilities, skills, or values. Distant working is helping us to not emphasize on visible differences. And this is something that needs to be studied and needs to be studied. We're much more focused on the variables that we call as human capital diversity. Well, we know that we are going to be linked to people from all over the world, working with people with different from different cultures and so on, and we have to be aware of the effects that diversity can have, no? And to really size the opportunities that diversity can have, it's really important to be conscious of also the negative effects that diversity can have. Now, diversity can have both positive or negative effects, and it will probably have both kind of effects at the same time. So we can have perhaps problems in internal communication within a group, or sometimes difficulties in reaching consensus or cohesion sometimes, but cognitive processes, decision-making processes will be improved, you know, at the same time. So the difference, the element that makes diverse groups perform better is how they are managed. The new way of working with not only physical distancing, but also a different psychological contract with your employer and so on can help to focus on the positive effects on cognitive processes and external communication processes. No, so it is really important for specifically for HR managers to know these effects and how can they handle it This is not a moment in which we should forget about diversity, because this is something linked to other times, or linked to social responsibility and so on. But we have to understand it as an element that can help to improve our internal innovation and so on. So just to finish my my presentation, just a quick view on specific actions that we can do to manage diversity within our groups, no? And this is a matrix, something that academics in sociology and economics really love, no, to make this kind of matrices. So this is something quite easy, in fact, mixing relative degrees of demographic and human capital diversity, leading to 4 kinds of groups. No? Other conclusion that we reached in our research is that there is not a best way of managing diversity. The starting point should always be a really deep auditing process of what kind of diversity do we really have, and depending on the specific situation, we can have different kind of groups. Homogeneous group with low demographic and human capital diversity, really high diversity groups, which are the potentially synergistic groups, and 2 intermediate positions, no, depending on what kind of diversity do we have, a visible demographic diversity or a deep level human capital related diversity. No? Depending on this specific kind of group we face, we can have different effects. And something that is really relevant is the cost that not managing diversity could have. A lot of managers and HR managers in Spain and other European countries has asked us about the cost that managing diversity have. Now, Myrtha always says that the main cost of diversity is the cost of not managing it, not sizing all the opportunities that diversity could have, or facing the problems that diversity could also have if it's not well managed. Okay, so I'm not going to stop in this slide because there are a lot of content there, but just I'm sure that you will have the presentations, you can have a deeper look to this, but those are just some recommendations about what can groups do to manage each specific type of diversity. So, for example, if you have no diversity, nor demographic, nor human capital related diversity, the recommendation would always be to create diversity, to focus recruitment, selection, training, and talent management practices on promoting differences, because they can lead to innovation capabilities and so on. And depending on what kind of diversity do you have, some other specific actions would be recommended. So we think that it would be necessary to face the new social and economic situation that we will have in the next years to really care about our internal diversity levels within the groups in which we are collaborating and so on, and how can we use not only distance learning, but what can we do to create a new way of understanding our role in organizations and our role as managers and our relationship with colleagues within our groups or companies to eliminate the barriers that make us not have a closer contact that could lead us to seize the opportunities of from diversity. Okay, in this sense, just 5 conclusions of what we wanted to tell you about diversity management as the key topic to be focused on in the next years. We cannot really talk about diversity, but about diversities. Not all diversities are equal, and they do not always cause the same effects. They have, you cannot forget negative effects of diversity that they almost always take place simultaneously with those benefits we'll be talking away. So the best way of managing diversity is to design your own diversity management mechanism. This is something that we think that will have to be applied to any field of management. The situation, and with this I come to the beginning of my presentation again, the situation is so strange and the context is so complex that the key element to promote socially responsible management is going to be managerial intelligence. The way in which people responsible for managing others or managing groups and organizations are able to analyze, to really understand other values, beliefs, or needs, and manage them accordingly. So I think that we can learn a lot from the diversity management literature in this term, which have been many years defending a new way of understanding human resource management, which we think that could be helpful to rethink management in the post-pandemic era. So I finish with this, and I'm sure both Myrtha and I will be more than happy to talk with you about anything you wanted.
Thank you, Gonzalo. Thank you, Myrtha. This has been a splendid session on work and diversity. We're running pretty close to the end of the time, but I wanted to just get maybe closing comments from you. I was struck, Gonzalo, in your summary, that not all diversities are equal, and that diversities can have both positive and negative dimensions simultaneously, and that what's really required is a complete overhaul and revamping of the resource management systems of an organization in order to foster healthy diversity. And I think that's so fundamental, because often we think, well, we'll just hire a few more people of color or people of X or Y disposition or ethnicity, and that makes us diverse and creates a diverse workplace. But what both of you have indicated is it's an organic, systemic process of instilling respect in such a way that the diversity is both honored, and when it's in combination with other diversities, further engenders the kind of creativity and out-of-the-box thinking that can empower the organization into more abundance and profitability. So I really appreciate the comprehensive views that you have set forth. They're very important to all of us, particularly at this time of ethnic and racial unrest, not only in the United States, but around the world. And having lived in Europe last year, I was witnessing what was going on in France with some of the ethnic tensions also EU-wide with the refugees coming in from the Middle East and North Africa. Certainly we've witnessed it in Africa and Asia as well. So this diversity management is extremely important. So maybe Gonzalo, you could make just a brief closing statement, and then Myrtha, allow you to have the final word. Then we'll close out our session. Gonzalo?
Well, in fact, just thank you, because I really appreciate your invitation to be here today. I've really enjoyed the afternoon, and well, I just wanted to say again, because I've said before, that I'm really optimistic about how things can be done. Perhaps I'm not objective, because I've been linked in the last year and a half with people with the same approach, proposing models to manage organizations and societies in a different way. But I would, if I had to choose a final word for my presentation, would be that a lot of things can be done to rebuild things that we were not doing well before this pandemic, and the situation is somehow shaking us and saying that, well, you have to change, and the change is being so dramatic that we cannot do other thing but to change the way in which we were thinking about our organization, our work, and our role in society at the end.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Myrtha.
Oh, well, Jim, so glad to be here today with all of you. And I have to finish with the same phrase I started, which is that diversity is the very nature of humanity. Men are women. We are all different. And this is the beauty of humanity. If it were not for that, we wouldn't be a humanity at all. Now, in companies, if we take it down to a company, it's already diverse. It's not that we have to create diversity because we bring people of another race or another nationality or another language or another what have you here. The human resources, the task force of any organization, regardless the size, is diversity. Everybody is diverse. Diversity management starts in sensibilizing awareness of all the people in the organization to respect and accept the differences of others in order to make those differences an added value and create results to the organization. And that is the basic. The basic of all diversity management is the awareness that we are all different and that those differences can become innovations to create sustainability and efficiency to companies and to all organizations. And that is relevant in the governance area. I mean, if today the governments do not understand each other, it's because they are diverse. And if inside the company it is you create conflicts, it's because people do not understand and appreciate each other's differences. So it's a process of understanding differences and of including them into a process of valuing those differences into an effective innovation process. Another issue, very important, something that that Gonzalo has always researched. Gonzalo is an excellent researcher. Is the group results, group work. Why? Because when innovation, it's a derivates when people work in groups, not when they work alone. And in distance working, again, we cannot feel alone. We're not alone in distant working. We have to understand that we can relate and interrelate with other people of the organization or with people outside the organization. We're not alone. We have to work in a group with a sense of team working. The bigger number of groups in any organization are groups that are homogeneous. Why? Because it's easier for people to work in homogeneous groups because everybody understands each other. But those create obsolescence because what they do is repeat the past. They do not know how to innovate. Now there's another group that are people that are diverse because new people start coming into those groups. And those, if they are not integrated, they create conflicts rather than anything else. But the groups that are diverse and that everybody respects each other and appreciates each other's differences, those are the ones responsible for innovation. And this we have researched until, we have researched for the DG5, the commission for 10 years. So we can say that that is what happens. So innovation is a result of teams, of groups, of people that are diverse, that respect each other, and that value each other's differences and become far more efficient. So we have addressed the issue today from new ways of working, because those new ways of working are going to be the detonators of changes in industries, in services, in everything, We have to understand the opportunities and of course the risks, but we have to look for the opportunities that this new era is going to bring. And those who are going to be successful in this new era are the ones that are going to understand that we have to address these changes in a positive way. But from the understanding point of view, we have to understand the causes of these changes so that we can leverage them. Okay? I wish you the best future life possible, and we wish you the very best in a very wonderful context that we have to rethink our way of living and understanding that we have to influence all the agents in the environment in this scenario to be able to advance to a new era, because the ones that we have left behind is totally unsustainable. Thank you so much, Jim, for being there.
Thank you, Myrtha. Thank you, Gonzalo. This has been a splendid session, very timely given world circumstances and events, both at the level of work and the nature of work, but more fundamentally at the level of diversity and how we honor the reality, as Myrtha just said, that humanity by nature, by definition, is diverse. And let us embrace that. So thank you both for your remarks today very much. Now on Monday, we're going to be delving into something that will be at the heart of this whole issue of diversity. We're going to have a panel of men that are going to be talking about what masculinity, what is maleness in a post-patriarchal world. You know, over the last 75 years, there's been a huge amount of attention placed on the liberation of women. Rightly so, after thousands of years of patriarchy, women have been systemically repressed in every conceivable way. And what we're witnessing in our generation is a profound liberation of women all over the world. And at the same time, the liberation of women has radically altered both the relationship with men, but challenged men in equally profound ways. But there's been very little work or note, particularly in the mainstream and popular media, about how masculinity is changing. So starting next Monday, we're gathering together through a partnership with Lion Goodman, who's been a major player and leader and writer in the men's movement for the last 2 to 3 decades. We're beginning a monthly reflection on the reimagination of masculinity in a post-patriarchal world. That's going to be leading up to a Global Men's Summit, November 19th through 21. Later this year, November 19th is International Men's Day. So what we're gathering together is a fairly massive coalition of men's organizations, again, from all over the world. We're going to have a number of leaders of men's organizations speaking to us on Monday, and we're going to begin a very deep reflection through Humanity Rising on the nature of maleness, the nature of masculinity in this increasingly diversified and exuberantly dimensionalized world, where even the categories of gender and sexuality are undergoing revolutionary change. So that's on Monday on Humanity Rising. I hope all of you enjoy your weekend. It is springtime. It is Easter. We're just finishing up Passover. So this is a very holy time as spring surges beyond the confines of winter, and we're all feeling the vitality of life. So enjoy your weekend, everyone, and we'll see you again here on Monday, same time, same station on Humanity Rising. Bye for now. And thank you, Myrtha. Thank you, Gonzalo, for a splendid session on
Thank you very much.
Diversity. Beautifully done.